With regards to people pleasing, I mean, to a certain extent, people pleasing isn't a bad thing, but it's just, I suppose, keeping it in check, isn't it?
Pleasing people is not a bad thing, but if you're doing it in order to meet your own needs, which a lot of people pleasers are doing it to meet their own needs because that's where they get the validation from, that's where they feel liked and loved and all of that. They're actually doing it for themselves rather than actually doing it for somebody else. So the more you develop that relationship with yourself and you please yourself and validate yourself and praise yourself and all of that, what you then give to other people is more real.
Hey, it's Chris here from Adventure Solos, where we help people in their 30s, 40s and 50s to rediscover themselves and meet new people. In this episode, my friend Noel and I are chatting to Claire Morton. Claire came on the Windermere Weekend and I thought she had a really interesting story to tell. Claire found herself single and she wanted to break what she saw as a cycle of failed relationships. Now she works as a coach, helping other people to achieve the same goals for themselves. We chat about how to look after yourself if you're a natural people pleaser, different types of love languages, which I've found pretty eye-opening, and discuss whether Noel really is selfish or not. If you'd like to find out more about Adventure Solos events, visit adventuresolos.com. That's adventuresolos.com, where you're very welcome to stay in touch by joining the mailing list. So adventuresolos.com and enter your details to sign up to the mailing list.
Hi, I'm Claire, and I'm 43, and a lot changed for me when I turned 40, which I think we're going to talk about today.
Cool. And so I guess the reason for getting you on today is I think you've got a bit of an interesting story. Well, as you know, I've just turned 40. We were just chatting there briefly. Didn't feel great a day or two before, but it turns out life goes on. So yeah, you had an interesting experience when you turned 40.
I did, yeah. So actually the year I turned 40 was actually brilliant, and I found solo traveling at that point and went to like the Philippines and Australia and, had everything that you want really in terms of the job and the house and all of that kind of stuff, and actually met somebody who I was in a relationship with for a short time, and then it kind of all went wrong really, and that broke up, and that's when sort of things really changed for me. I was kind of in that spiral of self-doubt and why is this not working, why can't I make relationships work and all of that kind of thing. And I'd been doing a bit of self-development for a while, but I that's when I signed up to a coach, and that helped me see that the missing piece of the puzzle, if you like, was my relationship with myself.
You started a journey of self-discovery, but then you've become a coach and you're now what's your business or what's your title now?
Yeah, so I'm a self-love and relationship coach now. So after doing like the program myself and seeing the transformation and just like seeing how many people live like this, trapped and with those patterns, and we often go into relationships and we've all got all of this stuff going on, and then we try to have a relationship and it just doesn't work. And so once I'd done that, I was like just passionate about wanting to help others to have that same transformation really. And so set up my own business and got the qualifications as a life coach, and I'm kind of on that journey now of building that business.
You're essentially a life coach, but specifically focusing on, I guess, your relationship with yourself and then perhaps relationships with others.
The self-love piece was like massive for me, because what happens is like relationships with other people are a mirror of like the relationship that you have with yourself. And when I kind of unpicked that, like I didn't feel I was good enough. I felt I was boring, not interested. I was kind of trapped by fear, perfectionism, people pleasing, you name it. Like basically I was kind of living outside of myself, if you like, worrying what other people think. That obviously impacts how you then are with other people, and also how you let other people treat you. So You'll treat, like, you let other people treat you in the way you treat yourself. Well, if you're horrible to yourself, then you let other people disrespect you and all of that, and that's your normal, that's your familiar.
Would you say you've always been this way, or was this down to something that happened to you when you were younger?
A lot of it was because of the colour of my hair, being red, and a lot of kind of bullying, I guess, in school. I never learned really in childhood how to deal with emotions and how, like, bad things happening and all of that kind of thing. So what I was trying to do was make sure that nothing bad ever happened. I didn't, ever feel anything bad. So I would just make sure everybody else was happy and no conflict. And, I'd adapt to whatever anybody wanted me to adapt to and all of that kind of thing.
It's funny, isn't it? You say about sort of as children almost not talking about emotions or whatever, but I think that's true for me as well. I don't know if it's not the sort of thing you get taught at school, is it? But it's important in life. I don't know if we always get that.
No, we definitely don't. And I think, it's nothing against our parents and stuff, but it's a generational thing that you don't really talk about emotions. And my parents would fix everything for me, so I didn't have to feel bad. And yet, actually, I never got to experience those bad emotions and how to deal with them, and that it's okay for people not to like you.
And are you mainly working with men or women, or is it what's the bias on that? Is it a mixture?
A mixture, yeah. So I think I've worked with more women than men, but yeah, I have worked with some men, because it's the same for all of us. We've all got our stuff, if you like.
And lots of different ages, or do people come to you? Are you noticing it's a general sort of specific age that people are in need of this help?
Yeah, it tends to be kind of 30s and 40s, top end of 40s, early 50s, some. But yeah, I think that's the time when you realise that you're repeating the same patterns again and again, and you're not getting anywhere, and it's so yeah.
I would have thought. I mean, men surely are terrible at this kind of self-reflection, aren't they?
Some are, and yeah, and some aren't. Some find it uncomfortable, like, to start with, but then get kind of hit in the face with realizations, and they're like, wow, it makes a big difference. Like one guy that I coached, he like came to me to start with, and he's like, it was actually as I was training, so it was like a guinea pig, if you like, and he was like, I just want to live on a mountain, never be in a relationship ever again, like, I'm done with it. I was like, oh God, I've got my work cut out with this. I don't know how I'm going to do it. And then as we went through the program, it like suddenly had realizations that, like, he realized that he believed all relationships were rubbish and fake, and people were fake and all of that. And it kind of dawned on him that actually it was him that wasn't being authentic, if you like. He was being fake. He was hiding himself because he didn't believe he was good enough, and yeah, he was able to kind of see that and change his behavior. And he met someone towards the end of the program, and a year later he got engaged, and last month he got married.
Had to sell the mountain.
Yeah.
Give up that whole dream.
He gave up his mountain. It's like, wow.
Maybe his other half's moving onto the mountain with him.
Yeah, maybe.
How long a journey was that for this particular person? So you're talking from, I guess you meeting them to the wedding bells.
It'll be about 2.5. Will it be about 2.5 years? Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And are you still working with that person then?
No, it's just I kind of do like 3-4 month programs. Well, it was 3 month then. It's 4 month now. What I offer. So.
And so during that time, that 3 or 4 month period, am I right in thinking you're kind of learning and discovering about yourself and what you value and what you can offer and all that kind of stuff? Is that fall within self-love?
Yeah, a mixture of things really. So it's kind of getting clear on what you actually want and what you're looking for. And, we often talk about criteria of, they want them to be this high and this, all of this, but actually it's about how do you want to feel in that relationship? Because it doesn't really matter how tall someone is if they, they can make you feel a different way. So it's all that kind of stuff. And then it's about uncovering all that programming about your relationship with yourself, like how you feel about yourself, and also how you have relationships with other people. And then I'm trained in neuro-linguistic programming, so you can transform some of that and go back to some of the stuff that went on and transform those kind of beliefs about yourself. And then it kind of moves into connecting with yourself and being your true authentic self, because we all have this mask that we kind of put on and pretend to be, and it's about like breaking down that mask and who are you actually. And you know, it's okay to be jealous sometimes, it's okay to be angry, it's okay to be selfish. It's seeing why that's all there, rather than keeping up this pretense in life that just makes you fake, really, if you like.
It's funny you mentioned selfish there, and I sometimes think, I mean, selfish has such negative connotations, but I actually think it's quite healthy sometimes to be selfish. Like you're saying about people pleasing, and if you're saying, you know, maybe some people have a tendency to do that too much, the opposite is being selfish, but that's such a negative word. But just looking after yourself, and I guess almost going back to the self-love and self-care thing, that is looking after yourself. And in a way, I think it's fair to call that selfish, but it sounds terrible. So
yeah, our need to be selfish kind of comes up if we're not looking after ourselves enough, because it's like a mechanism that kinds of, everything's got a good intention. So when you're behaving angry, there's something behind it that's driving that. So it's really fascinating.
I get confused of being selfish quite a lot.
Who by?
By my girlfriend, and it really always confuses me, because whenever I am accused of being selfish, my response to it is, well, in this particular situation, yes, and it seems absolutely fine to be taking that position. With regards to people pleasing, I mean, to a certain extent, people pleasing isn't a bad thing, isn't it? But it's just, I suppose, keeping it in check, isn't it?
Pleasing people is not a bad thing, but if you're doing it in order to meet your own needs, which a lot of people pleasers are doing it to meet their own needs, because that's where they get the validation from, that's where they feel liked and loved and all of that. They're actually doing it for themselves rather than actually doing it for somebody else. So the more you develop that relationship with yourself and you please yourself and validate yourself and praise yourself and all of that, what you then give to other people is more real. Because you're giving from a place of love rather than a place of needing their affection, needing their validation. So, and people feel that. It's like an energy that people feel. So it's interesting, isn't it? Because we think we're being nice, but we're not always being nice. We're just often getting our needs met because we don't meet them in ourselves.
I know a few people pleasers, and I find it frustrating sometimes. So like, I guess I'm maybe just the other end of this. Well, I was going to say the other end of the spectrum. Does that make me selfish again? But in terms of, if someone asks you a question like, you know, what would you like to drink? Then I just want a straight answer. And a people pleaser, I find they'll be like, you know, I don't mind. And it's like, well, yeah, but what do you want to drink? Like, that doesn't help me. Do you want a tea or a coffee? I probably don't have them in, but do you want a tea, a coffee, or water? Like, if you tell me what you want, I can action that. But if you just try and please me and tell me the answer you think I want to hear, I find that really difficult. And I also think then, presumably, you can quite often be in situations where you're doing something you don't want to do because you thought they wanted to do it, and they're also doing it because they thought you wanted to do it. And yeah, for me anyway, I guess it's just a style or personality thing, but I like that directness, and I find people pleasing is frustrating sometimes, but maybe that's my issue to deal with.
Well, no, but with a people pleaser, you're continually guessing, what do they actually want, what do they actually like, and so you can never actually please them because you don't really know what they like. Because it's okay to, if they say they like everything, then you don't really believe it, do you?
And maybe that's the point, isn't it? It's about, let's say you are a people pleaser, which is, for example, what you were saying. Then it's about you actually identifying what you like, and then you can action that, isn't it? And yeah, doing that digging.
Yeah, like if someone had said, oh, I don't know, what movie do you like, or whatever, the first thing that comes like, well, what should I like, what will they like, what will they think is good, and it's like, what? It's like, what do I like? It's not about them.
Some of this links me back, right, Claire? Feel free to jump in at any point, because you'll actually know about this instead of be guessing at stuff. But you mentioned before about knowing what you're looking for, perhaps in terms of, let's say, a height of a partner, or I don't know, whether they've got a beard or what colour eyes they have and all that. And that's the other sort of superficial stuff. And then I think, I guess I was thinking about almost 3 layers. The next level down is maybe like you have hobbies or interests in common. But the bit I'd never really thought of until it was someone on one of the events mentioned it, one of the hiking events in the summer, is this sort of 5 love languages or whatever, which is almost the next level down, which is like all this emotional stuff and what you need from a relationship in terms of emotions and what you also can offer. And that's something I'd never heard of that before. You know, this particular thing, the 5 love languages. So I ordered a book on it that he'd mentioned. The book is by this guy Gary Chapman. If anyone wants to look it up, I think a lot of the stuff in it is really sound advice. But then I'd caveat that with it's a bit 80s and there's lots of sort of boy jobs and girl jobs and it's a bit of its time. But the love languages in there, like these 5 things. I presume you know all about this, do you?
Mm. And often our love language like comes from like our like beliefs and what we've learned in terms of our programming around love, and it's often what we've not had enough of in childhood is often our love language, because it's kind of what need we need to have met.
Oh yeah. So if you've not had, the one you've not had is the one that you want as an adult then, or that's the one that you tend to give as an adult?
Yeah, that you want to. Well, often it's what you want to give, because obviously people can have different love languages, and one of the things is people often give love in the way that they want to receive love, but that's not necessarily how someone else wants to receive love. So
for anyone listening, I've got these 5 in front of me. I did my homework, you see. I've got this book here. So the 5 love languages, or according to this book, is words of affirmation. So people, I guess, say nice things. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Quality time, so spending time with people or giving your time to them. Receiving gifts is number 3. Acts of service, so I guess making a cup of tea for Noel when he arrives late and stuff like that. And physical touch is the 5th one. So people presumably need a bit of each of these and presumably give a bit of each as well. But it's about sort of identifying what you really value, isn't it? And what your needs are, or what's most important to you. And people can be, just literally speaking completely different languages and not appreciating. You might think you're doing something really nice for someone because that's one of your drivers maybe, and they're receiving it, but don't value that. They value other things.
Yeah, and then you get cross because they're not like appreciating the love that you're giving, but they're not receiving it because it's not the way they talk.
So maybe when Ashley accuses Noel of being selfish, maybe she's missing out on some of the love and affection that he's been putting across.
It's quite. We talked about this about 2 weeks ago, and it's really sort of changed a lot for me, because all of a sudden you start to think about the things that you do in a completely different way. I've left my girlfriend for the weekend on a very, very cold weekend, and our house is partly heated by an open fire. And as I left tonight, I felt a little bit guilty that I was going away for the weekend. That's part of it. But anyway, I was lighting the fire, and I thought, this is part of the whole love language thing. So she's going to get home tonight. There's a fire laid. She just has to strike a match, light a piece of paper, and the fire starts roaring. So it's very much done as part of Chris's language of love etiquette. But you kind of have to accept that. You just have to live in hope, I suppose, that it's accepted in that vein, haven't you? And just keep going.
Yeah, or you communicate. I mean, like, it's finding out what... It sounds like you're guessing here.
That's what I was going to ask.
But I'm never going to say I've laid the fire. Just note that that's part of the whole service thing. No, come on, you can't talk. Can you? Should you? Yeah, maybe we both need to be aware of it.
Yeah, what's her love language? Is her love language acts of service? Is that how she receives love?
Yeah, it's all of the things that Chris mentioned, really. Yes, it is. She's very good at it. She probably is. Here am I thinking she's not aware of it. She's probably completely aware of it, and I just don't realise. I would say she does all of the language, speaks all of the languages fluently.
You've usually got preferred kind of 1 or 2, though. There's like your top.
Yeah, I don't know what that would be.
Yeah, do you know what yours are, Claire?
Mine's quality time and physical touch.
Yeah, I don't know what mine are. I don't think there'd be words of affirmation so much. Quality time, I would say. Not receiving gifts. I hate receiving gifts. Just makes me feel awkward. If I want it, I'll buy it off eBay. Acts of service, maybe quality time. Yeah, acts of service. Yeah, a physical touch, maybe. It's nice to have a cuddle, isn't it?
My girlfriend, it's just dawned on me. It's gifts. It's giving gifts. All the relationships I'd had before I met her at Christmas time, let's pick that one out. One present. It would be a one present situation. We'd both hand each other one present. And the first Christmas I had with my girlfriend now, who I've been together with for 16 years, I gave her the Christmas present, and then she handed me my Christmas present, and then she handed me another Christmas present, and then she handed me, and it just went on and on and on. About 10 presents, all gift wrapped with a bow and a message. Everyone had a tag with a lovely handwritten note in it. So that's one of her big languages, which I just didn't really recognise. It was to me, it was just annoying that I'd kind of fallen short in my eyes because I just stuck to the one present rule. But that's it, isn't it? And I didn't recognise it for what it was, probably.
And that fire, you should have wrapped it in gift wrap. Then she could set fire to the gift wrap.
It's a good thing to be aware of. That's what we're saying, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's one small part of all of being aware of everything, that how you are as a person and how you interact with other people, because it's a minefield, really. There's masses that we just do on autopilot and we don't even realise we're doing.
I mean, do you think a lot of us have issues that we're not aware of?
We're all programmed. We're like a computer. As soon as we're born, we're programmed. And we all have a map of the world, if you like, and it's the way we filter things, the way we see things, because two people can see things very differently, but it depends on their experiences, how they've been brought up, the beliefs that they've been told, what society's told them, what the school experience is like. Everything kind of forms our map of the world, if you like.
I was going to say, is a big part of it your parents' relationship, do you think?
Yeah, there's a lot about because that's the first relationship you kind of see or don't see, and that's kind of where you form what a relationship is, but it's also in your relationship with your parents. It's got a big part to play.
It sounds in a way like this process is almost like joining the military, which I've never done, by the way, but you know how you envisage you almost get beaten down to nothing and then built back up. And I guess maybe that's them de-learning or de-teaching or whatever the word is. And you're almost trying to do that with yourself, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's kind of reprogramming yourself into and being conscious on how you want to be rather than just how you are. So
it's Claire's boot camp, really, yeah?
Well, yeah, true. I do actually say it's a bit like getting a six-pack. It's because people expect it to then change overnight. They're like, "Oh my God, I believe this," and it's but it takes time to change. These are habits of a lifetime and things we've been doing for all our lives, really.
If you don't mind sharing, are there some things you'd be happy to tell us that, I guess, to bring it alive, that you learnt along the process about yourself that I don't know if 10 or 20 or whatever % of the people listening might think, yeah, that's me too.
Oh, yeah. Where do I start?
So just one or two.
I guess all those things I was saying before about that people pleasing. So very much, I don't know if you've heard the term codependent behaviours, but that was very much what I was. So I was dependent on other people outside of me. So I have to please people or something, and I have to do something, or I have to achieve something in order to be loved. And I had all sorts of beliefs around, I don't know if I dare say it, I'm sat talking to two men, but about men and how men are, and that just limits what's possible for us in relationships. And I kind of had, one of the big things was I believed that relationships were always kind of harmonious, and they're always, because I never saw arguments or conflict or disagreements, and so that was totally unfamiliar to me. So I expected relationships to just be, lovely all of the time, and just couldn't deal with any of that conflict. As soon as there was any conflict or disagreement, it's like, oh, this can't be right. It's all wrong, and that was a big realization.
And do you have groups of people around you that you can chat to this about? I guess Noel and I get together and a few other people as well. And it's like, it's a nice forum then. If you want to chat about anything, you can. But I just wonder, you say if your perspective or image or whatever is that relationships are harmonious. Do you have people you can talk to and say, how's your relationship?
I meet up with some school friends that are two men that I've known since I was 4 years old. And we tell each other everything, and we want each other to judge. We want to be judged by our peers, in effect, I suppose. And I was telling my girlfriend about this, that we do sort of open up to each other, and we do want to be judged. And my girlfriend said that is totally different to her experience of going out with her girlfriends. She will avoid subjects because she doesn't want to be judged by her girlfriends, whereas that's exactly why we're meeting up, is to be judged, to either find out that we're equally open to the fact that we might be completely wrong about a certain issue, or that we were completely wrong about it. But being judged is easier for men, do you think? Is that what I'm trying to say?
I don't know. I guess for me, like, women do the same. Like, I would always go, I wouldn't decide anything for myself. So I'd go and say, oh, this is happening, or I've done this, or whatever. And I'd want to find out what everybody else thought about it, and whether I was doing the right thing or the wrong thing. But I never actually asked myself. And that's what I mean by being disconnected. It was whereas now it's I've got that relationship with myself. So I'll ask myself, how do I actually feel? And what do I actually think? Not what does so-and-so think I should do, and that kind of thing. So, and I think a lot of us do that and look for the answers outside of ourselves. It's not to say that it's not useful to talk to people. It absolutely is. But we put the weight on their opinions and what they think. But actually, their opinions and what they think is coming from their programming, and which isn't necessarily helpful.
Let's jump back to you said if you were a people pleaser, how, maybe this is the $1 million question, but how did you stop doing that?
I guess it's those kind of realising that, well, you don't need to please people, and people don't need to like you, and that actually you need to please yourself. Not, that sounds awful, doesn't it? But that sounds selfish. But it is we neglect ourselves so much by just pleasing everybody else and put ourselves second, and then we feel crap, and then we get that negative self-talk that goes on, and all that kind of analysing everything. I don't know, maybe this is a girl thing, and maybe you too.
Have you noticed, is people pleasing a more of a female trait than a male trait, do you think? I don't know. Maybe I do know quite a few, actually. Actually, one of my good friends is a real people pleaser and causes him enormous trouble. Yeah. What's your experience of it? That it's just equally shared?
Yeah, I think it can be. It can be both. I think I've definitely come across both. I think maybe more women are more prone to being people pleasers, but I think a lot of men are as well.
Yeah, I know both men and women. I think that I'd say are probably, when you think about it, probably people pleasers. So, but it's interesting, isn't it? So to me, this whole process almost seems like, I really like kind of what you were saying there about asking yourself what you want. And it's almost about, almost maybe just taking that time out to ask yourself, what do you value? What do you offer? What do you want? And where are your boundaries? I guess people talk about drawing boundaries all the time, but if you don't know what your boundaries are or what's important to you, then just saying, having boundaries or drawing your boundaries doesn't really mean anything, because you don't know where you're drawing them, do you?
No, and that's exactly what I was like. It's it comes down to your values and all of that, but I didn't know what they were. I knew what I should have, how I should be and what I should think and what I should value, but I didn't know what I actually valued. So I was always looking outside of myself, if you like. And then when it came to boundaries, it was I'd never learned how to set boundaries, and my beliefs were you don't set boundaries because then people reject you and people don't like you. So you never say someone can't do something. That's horrible. And that was kind of my opinion. So then you let people do anything. And again, it comes down to that neglecting yourself. Because if you just let people do anything, you feel crap inside when they do things to you. and you start then internalizing that, and that's, you know, can lead to depression, anxiety, all of those kind of things, because we're our own worst enemy, really, when all of that is happening around us. And like through this process, it's about becoming your own best friend rather than your own enemy. Some of the things we say to ourselves, we'd never say to a friend, would we?
So where do you think you're at then? So you mentioned you're 43 now, and it was kind of life was all good when you were 40, and then this sort of relationship breakdown. So I guess it feels like maybe you've not been on that journey for that long. So sort of, I guess just talk us through, I guess, the last few years and where you feel you're at now.
Yeah, well, I've spent a lot of years kind of uncovering all of that and what's gone on. But actually, although like my age, I really want to meet someone, what I actually found was, like, I found the relationship with myself. And so I actually really enjoyed just being single. And I remember doing an exercise like on looking at clarity and what you really want. And it was like, if money and time was no object right now, what would you do? And I'd like, be single. And I was like, what? Who said that? I was like, so it kind of came quite late. And that's what I'm like passionate about for other people, is don't wait as long as I did. Because I think when you do uncover this, it is about having time, getting to know yourself, because it does take time, like it does in any relationship, to build that and get to know yourself. And it's like only now really that I'm kind of actively looking for a relationship. And I know, like with the work I've done, that I'm in such a different place, and can have such a different relationship to the relationships I've had before, which is amazing, really.
So did you consciously have time out from relationships to sort of, as you say, build on yourself and have a relationship with yourself? Was that a conscious?
Yeah, well, it kind of combined with COVID. So I was doing my coaching program I started in January 2020. So it was 6 months. So it was a lot of COVID times. So yeah, you couldn't go out and date and meet people. So it was quite a good, you know, good for me. Like people say about COVID and now it being bad, but actually that time for me, you know, on my own and living on my own was just really good, really, and it changed my life.
You would say you're a very different person than you were, say, 5 years ago.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. And it's kind of brought it home to me recently, really, in that, I don't know if I can share this, but my dad died 4 weeks ago. And yeah, sorry. And before, like, I wouldn't have coped with that at all. Sorry, I'm getting upset now, but yeah, because I was so dependent on like other people around me and my parents and what they thought of things and all of that I couldn't have coped with it at all. It would have been like my life had, you know, ended. And yeah, and it's so different to that. Like a lot of this is mastering your mindset, and all of those things that come up. Well, what if this and what if that, and like I can catch that because I've got that awareness, and I can go, whoa, that's a load of rubbish, thank you, but no thanks, I'm going to choose to believe this, because I've got that conscious awareness of my brain and how a brain operates, and the unkind things that will come up, and it'll say to you, and I know that I'm here for myself. So like my dad had a stroke, and the day that he had a stroke, like before I went round, and like the first thing I said to myself was, it's all right, I've got you and you'll be okay.
So that happened very quickly then.
Yeah, it did. So, but yeah, having that good relationship with myself, I know I've always got me. And that's not in a I don't need anybody else kind of way, because you can swing to the other way as well. But it's just, it gives you an inner peace.
I guess it's about, yeah, like you say, you've got that relationship with yourself and you're sort of fine and secure in yourself perhaps. And then meeting someone is a bonus and it's additional. It's not necessity. You're not dependent on them or what they're giving to you or anything like that then.
No, and I often say, like before, I would have said I was the seller, and I'd go into a relationship and like, hey, buy me, I'm this and I'm that and I'm good and I can fix you and I can help you and I can do this. And now I'm the buyer, And I'm like, okay, so, I've got all this. What can you offer me?
Oh, that's such a good way of thinking about it. That's going to stick with me. So yeah, you're the one sort of being picky, if you will. Like, you're the one in charge and control and deciding whether that works for you or not.
Knowing what I'm looking for, and are they showing me the respect? And actually, because my self-respect has gone up, I expect more respect from a man, from somebody else. So it's like, you don't tolerate. Before I would have tolerated disrespect, and now it's like, hang on a minute, I don't treat myself like that, so I'm not going to let you treat me like that. And that's where it comes, people treat you as well as you treat yourself.
Is your mum still alive, Claire?
Yes, she is, yeah.
And had your parents noticed a change in you?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. My parents and my friends and, work colleagues. And
have you had to have difficult conversations with any of these people, or maybe even, go on, tell us about that then.
Oh, no. I guess it is that kind of people are used to you, and I had 40 odd years of people being used to me a certain way and not setting boundaries, and I'd do anything for them and all of that. So then when you change that, you have to have honest conversations, and people are not used to it. Like, when you first set boundaries, if someone's not used to you setting boundaries, then they try and push it and keep going, and it's about that being strong on saying that, and then people gradually realise, and people treat you better because you're teaching them how to treat you.
Have you ever met any of your exes to talk about the relationships since?
Not to talk about. I mean, my ex of 15 years ago came to my dad's funeral, so but no, we didn't talk about stuff like that. But yeah, I feel like I could talk to them about it. Before I would have said, oh, it's all them and they're this and they're that and they're, all of that. But actually, it's not. It's me. It's them as well. Don't get me wrong. But a lot of it was me and the way I was behaving, which then, a lot would, like I say, like not getting my needs met, that kind of thing. But I wasn't communicating it. I didn't tell people. It's expecting people to treat me in the way I want to be treated. But if you just have a crystal ball and decide, how that is. So,
knowing what you know now, is there anybody that you've had a relationship with in the past that you now think, well, knowing what I know now, actually, I think it could really work really well if we gave it another go?
I don't like to look back, really, because it's like, I think it's, live in the present moment. And I think all of my relationships I've learned masses from, and I can clearly see what each one was there to show me, I guess, in a way. And yeah, all I know now is I can do things differently, and I'm still growing and still developing, and setting boundaries and stuff is still, and conflict is still like uncomfortable for me, but I have the courage now to know that that's the best thing to do.
Are you kind of excited to put it into, I guess you're doing it anyway on a day-to-day basis, aren't you?
Yeah, and I've kind of put it into practice, and like in dating and stuff, but I've put it in practice in my whole life. So in like work life, in like relationships with friends and family, and a prime example was my dad was like ill before, and like he was having mini strokes basically, and he wouldn't go and seek any help. So my mum was like, you've got to go, you need to go, you must go, you're this, you're that. And my brother was like, you have to, you're being stupid and all of this. And I just put like the rules of that in place, and I said, look, Dad, I wouldn't forgive myself if I didn't say how important this was to me, and I love and I care for you, and it's totally your decision whether you go, and that's your responsibility. But I can't not share with you that I love you and I want you to be here, and I want you to, I'd love for you to seek help, but it's your decision and your responsibility. And the next day he booked a doctor's appointment.
So he'd had a mini stroke and not gone to the hospital?
Yeah.
Wow, that's something, isn't it?
Yeah. So... but it just shows that difference in telling someone what they should do or how they should do it. If you use the word you, then you're immediately, the other person is like, I've done something wrong and I'm going to defend myself, and I'm going to come in. Whereas if you say, this is me and this is what I feel and this is what I need, the other person actually hears you. So I've practiced it in all kinds of relationships that actually I'm not amazing at it yet, don't get me wrong. I've still got to consciously do it and think about it, and I hear myself saying you, and I'm like, whoa, hang on a minute, let me just reverse, and what is this about? Why is this annoying me? What is important about it? And like I kind of go through the formula of I feel X about Y and what I need is Z. And it's really helpful, because what we sometimes jump into is I need you to do this.
That's a brilliant tip. Anyone can take that away and do your X, Y, Z. So say that again.
I feel X about.
I feel X.
About Y and what I need or what I would prefer or what would really help me is Z.
Brilliant.
And it just changes that dynamic, because you've not ignited the inner teenager in somebody to defend themselves or respond.
I'll try and remember that. So how's business going? So you're doing it, did you say part-time at the moment, and you're sort of transitioning?
Yeah, so I went part-time in July. So thank you. So yeah, now kind of working on building the business and getting out there on social media and all of that. I've had a break for a few weeks, obviously, with the things that have been happening, but...
And so if you started going part-time on it, let's say in July, you came on the Windermere Weekend in the June. Was sort of coming along, because I think I see this quite often, is people come and they're taking time for themselves again. Like quite often, people, because it's, adventure solos, people in the 30s, 40s, 50s. So quite often what I see is, well, maybe people have been through relationship breakdown and they want to discover themselves again, or sometimes they've got children that have then got to an age where they're independent, and again, they want to have time for themselves. Do you think there was a bit of that for you?
I don't know. I think like going along to that was a result kind of the work that I'd done, if you like, because I was like, well, as you know, I booked on like last minute. I just saw it, and then I was just like, yeah, let's just go for it. And the old me would never have done that. And going into a group of people I don't know, and but it just didn't faze me at all. And
well, you mentioned courage very early on. I can't remember what the context was, but I think a lot of people that want to come on these types of events, again, you mentioned that courage, and even people like, have really successful careers and all this kind of stuff, they're still nervous when they come along. I think it's natural, isn't it? But that didn't faze you too much then, the new you?
No, it didn't. And it's, we all have fear, don't we? And it's like, before I would just hover on the edge of the cliff, and I'd have like looked at going on it and gone, oh no, I can't do that. And whereas actually I just jumped. I didn't even really think much about it. I just did it, and because I knew I'd be okay. And and it was great. I see it like it's really fascinating to meet different people, and I'm not a loud one in a group, but I love to meet new people and hear people's stories and stuff, and because I feel okay in myself, it's like I'm okay mixing with people.
Do you feel like you do a lot of self-reflection?
Yeah, I think I do, partly because I think about everything. It not in a... I don't think it's in a real negative way, as in over-analysing and worried about stuff, but I do think my brain fires all the time and I think about everything. So yeah, I do, but I think you can almost take two paths to it. I think maybe even the generation above had an attitude of, that's just how I am, and I'm never going to change, and almost a slightly more stubborn approach. But I think the slightly more modern approach is, with, I guess, mental health in general is much more acceptable, if that's the right word. And I think we're starting to realise that it's not that you have mental health issues or not. Everyone's on a sliding scale, and for various different things. And it's just about, I guess, identifying what your strengths or weaknesses are. And I want to be someone that continues to improve. And I don't want to be a static. Well, it's growth, isn't it? That's the right word for it. It's personal growth.
In the early days of my current relationship, we would have, I'll call them discussions, which I would later look back on as being sort of character assassinations. But actually, they were probably quite helpful, if I'd taken them that way, insights into my character, weren't they? Maybe I should have. Well, I did listen to them, but yeah, I should have thought of them less as character assassinations and more as help.
Was it just the context wasn't as conducive to accepting them as tips?
Maybe that was it. Maybe that was it.
Maybe you need to. Maybe it's about love language or something. Maybe there's different ways to communicate it.
You definitely get better at this kind of thing as you get older, don't you?
It depends whether you're aware of what's going on, really, because otherwise it'll just repeat. And I often like to think of it, if you think of like obviously your subconscious, but think of it in terms of your knife and fork. Like none of us think when we pick up our knife and fork and we eat our dinner, we don't think, oh, which hand does the fork go in, which hand does the knife go in, and all of that. We just do it. And all of the things that we've been taught throughout our life are there in our subconscious, and we're just doing them. But you're blind to it, so as much as you can think that you know what's going on under the surface, you probably don't.
What's your business called, Claire?
So it's called Claire Louise Coaching, and I'm on Instagram and Facebook.
Okay, so if you had one piece of advice for someone listening, what would it be?
I think one of the things which I've already said is that developing that relationship with yourself, and you can do that in a relationship or not in a relationship, because that just impacts life. It impacts everything. It impacts like work, and like before I would like do everything like perfect and want to do all of that and please everybody, and now I'm like not. It can work the other way sometimes, but yeah, I don't get that stress with it because I've got responsibility, but it's not all mine. I don't have to fix the world kind of thing. So yeah, developing that relationship with yourself is key.
Well, I'm glad you've been on that journey. It's incredible. Yeah, I hope you're in a better place, and it's lovely that you get to help other people doing it as well.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, really enjoy it.
Hey, it's Chris here from Adventure Solos, where we help people in their 30s, 40s and 50s to rediscover themselves and meet new people. If you'd like to find out more about Adventure Solos events, visit adventuresolos.com. That's adventuresolos.com, where you're very welcome to stay in touch by joining the mailing list. So adventuresolos.com and enter your details to sign up to the mailing list.